Well, hello there. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the HoloNet Marauders podcast, episode 29. I'm AJ, and I'm here with my bomb bad pals, Jamie and Matt. How's it going?
It's going well. Going well.
Behind the scenes here, we just had huge issues, technical difficulties.
It's been like a half hour of technical difficulties, but we're lucky that our guests hopefully love us and we love them. So
it's been a good time. And speaking of our guests, it's the long-awaited. I had this fine the first take. How did it go?
I'm sorry.
Steve and Terrance are great friends through cosplay and whatnot. We invited you guys on here to talk about Solo, and we're very excited to get you guys on here. How's it going?
It's going good.
Doing
Great
well.
to be on. Listen to you guys every week. It's the
Really?
highlight of my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whichever day the podcast comes out.
Wow.
Throw it up when I'm working, so it's always great to be on here. So I'm excited.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Hopefully you don't get too skeeved up by your own voice the next time you listen to this episode. Then
I've done voice work, so we're past that. It's cool.
All right, good. So,
but we're gonna talk about that movie
Solo, a Star Wars story directed by Ron Howard. Which that trivia question pretty much clinched us a trivia win one time. Remember that? AJ?
Yeah. Fun fact that I don't know what the trivia question was,
Something
but we're doing
Ron
bar
Howard.
trivia in February of 2020. So just that date alone tells you, we
this
won.
Is the last thing we did in public.
We won front row tickets to the Bruins. That game never happened.
No, never happened.
So good time though.
Yeah.
Solo. Do you guys think it is? I had a conversation with someone the other day. Do you guys think Solo is the most underrated Star Wars film?
Yes.
Okay, that's the show. Thanks.
That's the show. Goodbye. See ya. Good to
see you guys.
But yeah,
I think it is, and we touched about this, in the previous recording that we tried to do about 20 minutes ago. But you talk to any Star Wars fan, and a lot will agree with you. It's pretty well liked by a lot of like hardcore fans because it has that aspect of being really true to the 1977 original. Excuse me. It really captures that spirit, and I think that's why it's so beloved amongst us. But I think maybe the general public were going through a bit of, Star Wars exhaustion. There was a lot of fan backlash that was really undeserving from Episode 8, and a lot of people didn't come out and see it, and we're not getting a Solo 2 because of it. It's a shame, but I will defend this movie to the death. I love it. I love it so much. It's great.
Yeah, you're honestly right. I always think that Disney took the wrong lesson from Solo, in which, in my opinion, I think it suffered from a lot of things, but being released so close to the last movie and just not at the time that everybody had become accustomed to, I think was the thing that hurt it the most. And I think Disney took the wrong lesson from it. I think they looked at all of the spin-offs, all of the anthology series movies, and they just scrapped them because Solo was unpopular, but Solo wasn't really unpopular.
I mean, I talk about this at great length, but I absolutely hate how much they butchered the timeline of releases of things. Solo, the first season of The Mandalorian was very poorly timed, in my opinion. Same thing with Rogue One. It's just. And now we're getting this onslaught of all this new stuff all the time, and it's this is a lot of content all at once, and I love it, but this is a lot of content. And
it's more than what we're used to, I think, because with the Lucas films, no pun intended there, I guess, but you have 3 years in between films, and then obviously in between trilogies there was 20 some years, so or less, but to have a movie come out every year, it's a lot of content to go through. It's a lot of content now with multiple shows coming out at the same time. I think Disney as a studio wants to make this a lot like Marvel, which is fine. I love the content coming through, but it's going to be a lot harder to consume all of it, I think. And that's where I take issue with it. It's giving more Star Wars, but it's a lot to deal with it all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this time next year is going to be crazy for it because we have Bad Batch going on right now. We had Mandalorian, but every week of next year, we're going to have, some sort of new Star Wars content, which is like amazing. Like I'll take it all day, but it'll be interesting how we consume that, and will it be too much? Because it did. I'd never had Star Wars exhaustion, like from Solo being right after Last Jedi, but I really don't know why they did that. And before off the air, Terrance mentioned that Steve, you're not a big fan of the December releases for Star Wars.
No.
Are you?
Well, I mean, growing up, it was always
yeah,
your May movie. So you'd come out around like the second to last week of May, and then you'd have the summer to play with all the Star Wars action figures outside when you were a kid. And then leading up to Halloween, then you'd have your Halloween costumes, from that movie. So that's just what I'm used to. So the December releases kind of caught me off guard, because for me, Star Wars isn't a Christmas movie. Like that just kind of bugged me. And also walking into a theater when you're the only person dressed up, but walking in the Buffalo snow in a Han Solo costume without a big jacket on is awful. I don't recommend it. So
you got to get a bulkier costume.
Right before Christmas, and the toys come out, and that's what Star Wars has always really been about. Toys.
The toys, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fair. It's fair. But hey, the toys have gotten worse in my opinion anyway. So
we're not going to talk about the toys today, although maybe like a little bit. Like we tend to talk about the toys a lot on this show. But yeah, I agree. Like you definitely, the releases being in December, you have like the tie-ins to go with them, but at the same time, there's not a lot, which is the big problem with it. Oh, I gotta find something. What do I have? I have a lot.
How about this?
Ooh.
Oh yeah,
Naka. All right.
Blessed by the man himself.
It was. He held it.
Portia himself.
Now, I hate saying things are ahead of their time, but the thing about Solo is, if it had been released like 2 years later, it would have been a Disney Plus show. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Solo show would have been amazing. But
I honestly think a Solo sequel would do really well as a show.
It probably would. My thing is, I would watch it again this morning, and I saw 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I thought, why? Why was it so long? Like, the first half an hour of Solo is just going over things that you kind of already knew, where you're like, oh, his last name's probably not Solo, and oh, he's probably not a great dude.
Yeah, like, so I rewatched the first, we watched the first 2/3 in prep for this today. Like, I had to work all day today, so I didn't get to it till after work, right? And then we went to grab dinner before this, and so I just straight up didn't have enough time to finish it. But it's a long movie, and it's really not that much plot, but it still is like really good what we do have.
I guess it would have benefited from a title crawl, so it says like, oh, his name's not really Solo, and he's not a really good dude.
See, that's a good debate that Matt and I have. Should every Star Wars film is every Star Wars film should have a crawl? Is that what you said, Matt?
I think so. I think only because all of the other media stick with the crawl. Like the books do a title crawl, the comics do a title crawl. Yeah, the Clone Wars kind of did its own thing. So like, they originally wanted to stray away from the title crawl for the anthology series because they were afraid like people would get it confused with the main saga films.
Well, they should know that people will get confused no matter what.
This is true. But I think
Jin is not Rey.
Leia is not Rey.
She's
Everyone is not. Kira is not Rey.
Breaking news.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you remember what they did for Solo instead of a title crawl, though? It's like
they did a title crawl.
It's
like hyperfuel. All right.
Yeah, it's like
it's like
about hyperfuel, and like if you don't know the Star Wars movie, you think you're like watching like Escape from LA. You're like, what am I?
Yeah. I like that though. It had like eerie music behind it. It was cool.
Even like when it pans out for Corellia, it's just something that we like haven't really seen like in a Star Wars movie, like that industrial, like switching total gears. Like the aesthetic of Corellia is like something else.
The aesthetic of this movie in general is just phenomenal, and I love that speeder chasing Corellia. I love seeing Corellia on the big screen. I love the little dogs. What are they called?
Like Corellian hounds.
Corellian hounds. Those are later on, but the first chase is really good too.
Don't forget about Lady Proxima, or
Lady Proxima.
Lady Proxima.
Amazing. amazing character design. The entire scene would have been hilarious on television.
Yeah. Like if they were able to do that as a series, they could have actually dove so much into the whole like gang with the white worms and whatnot, which would have been really cool to see. Because if you ever just like leaf through the Solo visual dictionary, there's so much content about the gang and all the other kids that like live with this gang, and that could be like its own like little side story on its own. And like I really like seeing like young Han and Kieran, like what they had growing up, and obviously they couldn't spend like a lot of time on it and they cut out a lot about it, but if it was a show, they definitely could have had all that extra stuff going on.
Yeah. I think a lot of things just benefit from like the show layout. Like I've always been a movie guy over a show guy, but shows can do so much.
I think what shows are doing now with the technology, how it's stepped up, because I remember this was 15 years ago, right after Revenge of the Sith, they had talked about a live action show. This is Rick McCallum talking about it when he was still at Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always say like they wouldn't have enough of budget to make it look good in terms of CGI and stuff. And we even see that now with The Mandalorian. Special effects are great, but even I remember the first episode when he's waiting for speeders and stuff. Yeah. There's something that's just slightly off that you're not really used to.
Season 1 was definitely a little shaky. Season 2 the first episode of season 2 sold me on the special effects of Mandalorian, but season 1 never did. It never reached that level. But it's funny you mentioned the live action show, because I remember rumors that it was supposed to be a live action Han Solo show.
It was.
And then it turned into like a live action Han Solo movie. So like the Han Solo standalone film has been in production for in various stages of discussion for the last 15 years. And go ahead.
Yeah, the Kasdans had wanted to do it for a really long time. I mean, particularly Larry, who wrote Solo, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's been in the works for a long time, along with Rogue One, essentially, But it was really good to see. Like I grew up on the Young Han Solo trilogy. That's how he became my favorite character. As a kid, I always get punished from like not doing my homework, or being a smart aleck. Excuse me.
You can say that. I don't mind.
Smart ass. Being a bit of a smart ass in class. So couldn't watch TV, couldn't hang out with friends. So I had to read a lot of books, and the Young Han Solo books were kind of my shtick. That's really how I got hooked on Han. And watching this film was really reminiscent of those books. And I later found out that Alden Ehrenreich actually read a lot of Wikipedia articles about the character, which means he read up on those books and he brought it to the table. So I'm like, this is why I liked it so much, because it was so true to, my idea of Han when I was a kid. So it kind of hit every nail on the head for me.
That's awesome.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And from those books, isn't the Crystal Skull in Dryden Voss's office a reference to that trilogy?
I think so. I think it is. And with Garrus Shrike being Woody Harrelson, can't think of the character name.
Tobias Beckett. Yeah.
Thank you, Tobias Beckett. So there was a lot of like things that got reworked, but the skeleton was still there, which I really liked.
Oh, that's really cool.
Those were nice touches.
Wait, so the Crystal Skull in Dryden's room in his like little like receiving area, that was a reference to the books, or to like Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull?
No, it is actually a reference to Han Solo and the Lost Legacy.
Okay.
Where they get the Death Head as part of an ancient treasure.
Sounds like an Indiana Jones story. So.
It's on the cover of the book, I think, too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll have to check that out after this.
Which listeners, if you haven't read those, you should read those. They're a lot of fun. It's very young Indiana Jones. Like going back to saying like this could have been a television series, that would have been great.
Yeah,
you cover a lot of ground. Even serialize it to make it like a different adventure each time.
And talking about shows with budgets, Young Indiana Jones had a budget. I mean that show has some very good special effects for their like 90s syndicated TV.
Right. They could have even brought on the old Harrison Ford like they did. But anyway.
That'd be cool.
I never thought about comparing Han and Indy, but they're both Harrison Ford and they're both like similar. But anyway,
like this,
back to Solo.
Yeah, back to Solo. Back to Solo. We got my favorite stormtrooper out of Solo. So the Mud Troopers.
Mud Trooper.
I fell in love with the Mud Troopers the moment I saw them. I absolutely adore them so much. I think that it's like crazy. Like with like the stormtroopers, it's that you never really see them without their helmets. Obviously, in like the original movies, you do in the sequels, but just Finn. And so they are always these like faceless soldiers. And so it was really cool just to see like the actual like infantry soldiers for the Empire. And yeah, like everything about like Minban is like an amazing like sequence as well. Hang on, I'm trying to take off the helmet here because this is
super violent.
This is actually Han, not just any mud trooper. It's actually Han.
Well, it's funny. Great. It's funny that you mentioned the infantry of the Empire because I only recently learned that the stormtroopers weren't just like the everyday casual infantry soldiers for the Empire, and it's the mud troopers.
Yeah,
they're not really. The stormtroopers are still there on Mimban and stuff because they release Han to Chewie, but
But
and
that was
one
interesting.
Of them.
The regular
and they can't hit a target, so
no,
what's up with that?
They're all garbage.
Awful. Yeah,
really.
Minban. Minban is just like such like a funky planet because everything's first of all just mud, and there's a lot of cut content from that as well. Like there's an extra person on Beckett's crew that we never end up seeing, which they lose immediately. There's all of the Minbanese, we never actually like see them really on screen, but they look crazy. They're like so red,
cool. I love
like,
the Minbanese
guys, and then we actually see one in the Mandalorian.
Yes, and in
right?
Squadrons.
In Squadrons, yep.
Ooh.
And so it's funny that they're recently coming up, and that's how Han meets Chewie in a pit of mud.
Yeah, and that's actually not the Han meets Chewie, but the planet of Minban is another.
Yeah, there's the Minbanese.
Hey, Minbanese. There it is.
Look at them. They just look so cool.
You just have that handy?
That's like another adaptation of Legend stuff.
You don't have your visual dictionary just like ready to go?
I carry that with me everywhere.
I've got this ready to go.
I'd be a huge nerd.
So we have the Tross Tross visual dictionary. AJ has a VHS tape for episode 1.
We got it covered.
On brand. Anyway,
something I wanted to talk about with Solo was it kind of still is the first. I guess Mandalorian's kind of done it, but it's the first Star Wars film to make like a payoff for people that have watched the animated shows. You know, we have Aura Singh referenced. We have something else referenced. We have Maul at the end. There's people who were watching and were like, wait, Darth Maul's back? But people that watched Clone Wars already knew that Maul was back. And it was kind of cool. We've seen Marvel do that where there's tons of payoffs for people that read the comics and everything. And if you don't read them, you find out along the way. But for people that consumed the extra Star Wars content, watching Solo was very rewarding.
Yeah, that was something I would always get into an argument with my dad about. It would be because he only watches the movies, or he did only watch the movies. Now I'm getting him into other things, but he only watched the movies for the longest time. And I always used to say, "Oh no, Darth Maul didn't die at the end of episode 1. He comes back." He always go, "No, I'm only watching the movies. So I'm only going by the movies." And then all of a sudden, Darth Maul appears in the movie after episode 1, and I'm like, "All right, there you go. Can't say anything now."
Yeah, and now everyone wants to watch I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people want to watch Clone Wars and Rebels and whatnot. We have Bad Batch, so
it's such a good cameo. It's so out of left field. It's like
it is, and I hope
completely random.
I hope we see more of it, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, we've skipped from the beginning straight to the end. So
let's
cover everything in the middle.
We were on Minban.
Let's talk about Lando.
Ooh,
which Donald Glover being Lando and just going into the movie, that was the biggest hype thing for a lot of people. They're like, I'm going I don't know about this Alden character playing Han, but Lando is going to be awesome. I'm seeing this is the Lando movie. And it was good to see people really excited for Lando, and Donald Glover nailed it. He was unbelievable.
The thing about Lando is he was never going to be in too much of the movie because he's one of those characters that is best in small doses. You don't want a Lando movie because you know that Lando's going to do something slightly and then they get away. You want to see Lando as the friend, comes in, says something charming, and then leaves.
And that's what he does. He loses his. loses his partner along the way, but then just pieces out of there.
This is what I do when I visit parents in New York, actually.
It's true. I just like 2 capes to my girlfriend every time, and then.
But Donald Glover's performance is just like unbelievable, and every time I watch it, he is so on point with just with how Billy D was with the character. Like every little Billy D-ism, I should say. I don't know. Like he's perfect.
He covered his intonations and the way he speaks just like perfectly. I mean, his great performance probably got him a show, the Lando show. You know,
if he's not in that show, if it's not live action with him, like what are we doing? He needs to be in that show, and I really hope he is.
It's actually Scarlett Johansson playing Lando.
Yeah.
No. Oh my gosh.
Full shoe polish. It's crazy.
I mean, if she can play a tree, she can play Lando. Let's be real here.
Yeah.
The thing about Lando, about Billy D and Donald Glover is that they both have like this kind of like effortless cool that's very like specific to their time. Like I've met Billy D Williams and he's still like charming to this day. Like if he was like drink Coke 45, I'd like how many? Like let's do it right now.
Yeah, I mean, even in The Rise of Skywalker, I thought Billy D nailed it again. You know, I wish he could have got some more screen time and whatnot, but you know, he was still smooth. But you know, like they're both such smooth guys on and off the screen. But I don't know. I almost said on and off the field, but
On
we're
and
not
off
talking
the
about
field. It's not relevant right now.
I almost hope that the Lando show is more of a continuation of Solo. I hope.
Me too.
I always say this. I think I've said this before in another episode, but I really want Solo and Lando to just like interconnect and be like. I want Lando to be a continuation of everything that we learned about in Solo and to be fleshed out, but maybe from Lando's perspective instead of Han's. You know, going forward.
Hesitation with that though is if they were to do that, say it's like what Bad Batch is for the Clone Wars, it's about like one specific group, but it pretty much is just like a extension of like that one thing. If they did a show that was Lando as an extension of Solo, it would probably jump away from him at some point, which isn't really the point. And so like when they do the Lando show, I hope that it is a story that is just about him and it's not just an extension of what it was, because at this point he doesn't have the Falcon anymore, but he still needs to like become who he ends up being in Empire. So I mean, like we'll find out along the way. Also, that was not intended to like sound like him. If it did, I'm sorry.
And we'll find out along the way.
No.
That was great. No, that was a good. You did a good Billy D there.
My favorite, honestly, my favorite like line like in the movie is him just yelling "yoo-hoo" and then he's just walking down the steps. And it's the worst. So bad. Why is that my favorite line in the movie?
I did love it when he said when they were landing on Kessel and he says, "I hate mining colonies." It's like you're gonna be the Baird administrator of one in like 10 years, buddy.
Yeah.
A lot of
ironic.
Good ones.
Ironic.
Something I never even thought of until you just mentioned it. That's funny as hell.
I mean, Cloud City is a gambling town at the very top. Like, you know, the Tabana gas funds everything, but you know, you go there for a vacation, which we never really saw unless you played Battlefront.
Oh yeah.
The
giant,
newer Battlefront.
yeah.
You know, but it was fancy and all that stuff. Anyway.
How do we feel about L3?
I love L3.
I like L3.
Love her.
Yeah.
Sorry, Terrance, go ahead.
I'm ambivalent to L3, but I just love Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yes.
Yes.
So
like, did I need the thought of like a self-aware like robot who's like, yay, liberation? Did I need it? No. But did I love Fleabag? Absolutely.
I agree. Like I still haven't like seen like Fleabag, but like after learning it was Phoebe Waller-Bridge, like my love for L3 has like gone through the roof. Like the first time we saw it, I was like, yeah, I liked L3. She was really cool. But like learning more about like literally more that went into her, it's just like, okay, yeah, she's really cool. Like I love her.
They have astounding chemistry for a robot and a person, and I'm so excited for their Mr. and Mrs. Smith show.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, I forgot.
Oh,
we can finally learn how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it works.
It works.
It works.
I think the droid liberation scene on Kessel is probably my favorite in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's all L3. So I'm 100%. I just love that. It's so Star Warsy to have like just a bunch of these like small droids like just stomping on things and like running around and causing like mayhem as they're trying to break out of this mining slave colony thing. It's
just so ridiculous. And
yeah.
The joy that L3 takes in it, it's such a Star Wars scene because it incites such chaos.
Yeah.
I love how it was literally a pure accident too. She just takes the bolt off the one droid and then it just kind of like blossoms from there. And she's just like, oh, okay.
Freedom.
Freedom.
Later, Amelia Clark is throwing grenades. You're like, oh god.
Oh yeah.
There's so much going on.
And then L3 is sacrificed in the process. Sad moment.
Heartbreaking.
It like really is though. That is a really heartbreaking scene. Like all of it. Like Lando going to rescue her. Yeah, and then
that's his girl, you know.
Yeah, it's really tough. And then
lady.
Yeah, it's tough the entire time. And then like Kira has to go and grab the head and just sorry, and then just runs away with like her like brain. Oh god. But
I love that little shot of like everything's on fire and Lando's just like there like with his cape and he's like, what is this? This was my ship.
Yeah,
it's very reminiscent of the Donald Glover walking in with a pizza in Community.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fire. That's what it is.
The Lando equivalent of that. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh jeez.
I think it's so perfect that L3 like becomes the AI of the Falcon too, and that noise that goes off that we hear in the original trilogy. It's so like, it's so perfect.
It's one of the things that Solo does. I think that all of the anthology films are doing that I both love and don't like is that they're answering questions that I never really had. Like in the original trilogy, when C-3PO was like, "Oh, you left your navigation system," I was like, "Oh, a weird accent." I wasn't like, "Well, gotta know where that came from." I was like, "Shut up, C-3PO."
Yeah.
Your business, C-3PO.
It was actually a freedom-fighting droid that got destroyed, and then they downloaded her brain into the Falcon. So, in case you wanted to know.
Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, Han just translates all that with just like yikes, and then just walks away. But yeah, like they have been like filling in like all like the random, literally one-off lines. So like such a peculiar language, and then like recently with like all like the Rogue One references we're finding in like the Bad Batch regarding Jin says Project Omega on Scarif, and that's literally what Omega is, and War Mantle also, which is also in the Bad Batch so far. But then like something interesting as well, like in Solo, they have Kira lists off a couple of random locations before they decide on going to Kessel. She lists off Scarif. She lists off Mercy Island, which hasn't been acted on yet. Mercy Island isn't a place in the Star Wars universe. People have tried to figure it out, but it doesn't exist. But Scarif exists, and that was obviously just a few years before. And it's funny that they were like, planting the references already to even like that new content that was coming out, but it is more interconnected than people, I feel like, give it credit for. I feel like a lot of people overall for Solo feel like it's like so different than all the other Star Wars movies, and it's not like in the same universe, but it is. It's just a slightly different vibe, but it is the same thing.
Doesn't one of the characters say that like you won't get to Black Spire without me? Isn't like reference?
Oh yeah.
L3 says that. So it's when they're about to leave Vandor, they're walking along, and she didn't agree to them going anywhere, and she's just like, "Yeah, you wouldn't make it to Black Spire without me," and it's just like, wait a second, because like Black Spire opened like that year or Batu, and it's just like, wait, well, you're already tossing that in there. It's just great.
Is that when she calls him Landonus?
Yeah, right after.
Well, that's his name.
Landonus.
Landonus Balthazar Calrissian the Third, I think.
What a name! What a man!
That's a great name.
We haven't talked about one of my favorite characters in the movie.
Val,
the villain, Dryden Voss.
Ooh,
damn.
We haven't talked about a lot of characters actually.
I know.
Well, Dryden Voss was originally played by Michael K. Williams, correct? Did I make that up?
That's correct.
I think you're right, yeah.
He wasn't available for reshoots, so I think it was Ron Howard who called up Paul Bettany and said like, "Hey, can you do this like in a pinch?" And he literally came in last minute, didn't do any of the makeup. They just added that in post. And he shot all those scenes, and I love Paul Bettany. I'm a big fan of A Knight's Tale. It's one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah.
So I got to meet him at Celebration Chicago, and that was really, really great. I was kind of gushing over him. I'm like, remember you were in Wimbledon? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, I have like a newfound love for him now after
WandaVision.
Yeah, because like I never thought Vision was like anything crazy. You know, he's
Jarvis was the cool one. So
yeah, Jarvis was the cool one. But then like his performance as Dryden, like Paul Bettany nailed it. You know, I keep saying all these actors nailed it. I've said that like 5 times, but
they did.
The casting was awesome overall.
I was a big
because
fan
he's a guy who was like charming but smarmy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. What did you say, Terrance?
Terrance, go ahead.
I said I was a fan of his fight scene at the end. I didn't like it in theaters, but I just rewatched it this morning, and I was like, this is kind of cool.
Yeah,
I like how he's killed. That's stab
helpful.
right to the heart. I know it's terrible. It
one.
sounds terrible, but stab right to the heart.
It's it's super unique. Well, not getting stabbed to the heart, but like his fighting style is super unique because it brings Terrance Kasi into the Star Wars universe, which started on like that like random video game, Masters of Terrance Kasi, and it's just so funny that they just dropped it in there. So, and yeah, like plus like Dryden has like the crazy like knuckle knives, which are like just like really, but they're like vibro blades,
laser knuckle knives actually.
Yeah, I love how the first time you see him using them, he just like places them on the tray for the decradiated, which is another topic. And he's just like, I might be needing these later, and like it's like he's like looking at it, and then he's like says to the person, oh, like lighten up, it's a party, and like the person has no brain.
Yeah.
And he's just like he's just like
yeah.
chilling, like bantering with them, and it's just like this guy is incredible. Like,
and that's another piece of like who says that Solo isn't interconnected? I'm thinking like right off the top of my head, like the decraniated is a connection to Rogue One, which is connection to Dr. Evazan, and then you have the Pike, the live action Pike Syndicate guy, which blew my mind the first time I learned about that.
Yeah.
But Dryden's office is just like a treasure trove of different Easter eggs. We talked about like the crystal skull. I love the Mandalorian Ranger armor that he has, which is from the Old Republic, apparently. We don't know too much about the Old Republic in New Canon right now, but I really want to learn more about the Mandalorian Rangers with their cool like samurai-esque armor that he gets in the background. Of course, he has Applex's axe.
Well, we have Knights of Ren blade in the background.
Yeah.
Applek. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting collection, but
very interesting.
And then somehow it ends up in Doc Ondar's shop on Black Spire.
Really?
Yeah. That axe really gets around. The Sisterhood of the Traveling Axe. Who's going to have it next? Huh?
Do you find love with it? Is that how that works?
I hope so. I really hope Applek found love.
Did Dryden find love with it? We don't really know.
We don't know.
Did he love Kira? That's the question.
That's a good question.
He did.
Yeah, that's
that's
a really good question.
What is Kira's deal with Crimson Dawn? Like, we don't know. I need to know more.
It's a big question.
She got Batman branded items, so I hope that she's a while.
I always thought, I hate to say it, but I always thought she was like sold to them.
Yeah.
And that's why she has the brand, and then she kind of like rose in the ranks.
It could be like a life debt type of thing too. You know, if they got her out of a sticky situation on Kessel or wherever.
They just got her out of Corellia in general.
Yeah, because he's like, how did you escape? She's like, I didn't. So that implies like either she's a slave of sorts, indentured servitude, or, you know, the whole Jar Jar situation from episode 1.
Yeah, I don't think it's a life debt. I think that she's just like in it for life at this point, whatever it is.
She's done too many bad things to be, you know, integrated back into society as like a civilian.
Well, yeah, she like says that to Han. Like when Han's like, "Oh, let's mess around," and she's like, "No, I'm not the same person." So she's dropping those hints, and then we just never get the follow up on like actually what happened, which stinks. Which is why we need more about Crimson Dawn and about Kira, and about Enfys Nest.
Yeah, let's talk about Enfys Nest.
Talk about Enfys Nest.
Are we doing Enfys Nest?
Y'all love Noah. You guys know I love Enfys Nest. Like, she's in our logo. She's the unfinished helmet is sitting over there, and I cry every day I see it.
One day.
Hey, one day. But yeah, I can't. Someone else talk about her first. I don't even know where my thoughts are at the moment.
It's your favorite.
Enfys Nest is such like a cool design, like such a cool like helmet, and just again, it's like they captured the Star Wars look perfectly with like you got to get the right balance with a helmeted character to make the helmet look like Star Wars. And I don't know what formula people use to make a helmet look Star Warsy, but they really nailed it with Enfys Nest. Oh, geez.
So my favorite fun fact that I feel like I always share, but I don't know how many times I've shared it or where I've shared it, but I'll share it again here if I've already said it. The poetry on her forehead was inscripted or created by concept artist Glenn Dillon, and he just kind of wrote whatever, and the team did not like double check it like afterwards. They didn't ask like what it said. And so there was like a recent like interview-ish sometime last year that I got to sit in with a bunch of other people and him, and I brought that up, and he's like, yeah, they never double checked it, so I could have like been like cussing out the world, but like they didn't care. But that's just like a random side note. But the poetry itself says until we reach the last edge, the last opening, the last star, until we can go no further, which is incredible. Like just
super cool,
yeah.
I think about it daily.
And I love the kind of dynastic idea behind the Cloud Riders with the mom passing it down to the daughter kind of deal. So it implies like a history that poetry could be connected to that needs fleshing out for sure.
We might see her in the Bad Batch.
That would be cool.
We might. So we were figuring that out earlier. How old would Enfys be in the timeline for the Bad Batch? She would be about 8 years old at this point in time for the Bad Batch. And so her mom might be around. And so maybe we'll see her mom die because we know that's how she picks up the mantle. You got a couple.
That's why I'm watching Bad Batch.
Just to see Enfys Nest's mom's
moms die.
That's morbid. Wow. But really,
I love to derail everything.
I love the mystery around Enfys going into the film because like, oh, this is the villain, and I love obviously the twist of no, she's actually the hero, and she's like a spark of the rebellion that we will find out eventually. And we didn't even know she was, a female under the helmet. So that was obviously a cool reveal. I'm pretty sure in the theater I felt like Jamie like her spirit leave her body when that happened, but and it's cool to see the actress doing well, and she was in Falcon and Winter Soldier and had pretty much the same role, but was still super cool.
She's typecast now.
I know, that's hopefully
being a young badass.
Yeah,
she was sure. So
really?
Was she also young badass in that
set?
She was Eponine. So yeah, she was a young badass.
There you go.
Young badass.
But yeah, I was looking up Erin Kellyman's page before this as well, just to see like what her other credits have been, and she has been kind of typecast into this like young badass character, which is awesome. But like, hopefully she gets to like do more as well. She's also going to be in the upcoming Willow series whenever that actually gets produced, which is pretty interesting because Ron Howard directed that original movie and he's producing the new series, and so she's working with it again. And obviously she worked with Warwick Davis because he was one of the Cloud Riders like with her, which is and just
I like
tossing him in the movie with it, which is
that's another piece of interconnected stuff because that's the same character he played in episode 1. In the Phantom Menace. He's in
Booty Eve Classic. Yeah,
he's in Jabba's like
one of the
posse,
gamblers, just like,
and then he ends up in the Cloud Riders somehow, and that's the same character. I love that. Same with Two Tubes. Two Tubes ends up there too.
Mm-hmm.
Two Tubes.
Two Tubes.
Pour one out for Two Tubes.
Oh, pour them all out. And I love her theme. That's what I was thinking. I lost it, and then I remembered.
Fantastic theme. Yeah.
Her theme is so good, especially the Savarine Showdown. That was good. You should have kept going. That was good.
That's all I can do offhand. The Savarine Showdown is my favorite like scene in the entire movie. All of that because that's when we get the actual reveal. Of her in the first place, and then when they decide what to do with Dred, and then afterwards it's like, oh no, we tricked you, and like it's the old woman wearing the helmet instead, and she's just like, I love it. I didn't get to rewatch that today, and I'm immediately going to do that after we finish recording because I need to. And I just love everything about it, and it's just so intense. And her giving the full backstory of why the Cloud Riders exist and why Crimson Dawn is awful and why they're not the bad guys. And Beckett is just so dumbfounded by all of this because he's like, ah, shit, I've been stealing from a kid the entire time. Like,
Yeah, right.
He just hates himself in that moment.
Oh God, I made a deal with Crimson Dawn. Oh no, I'm about to betray all these people.
Yeah, literally.
At least he didn't make a deal with Kanja Club.
Didn't make a deal with Gadget Club.
It's all about
I really like Beckett's character.
I do
and he's
too.
kind of like the Bizarro Han, if that makes sense.
Bizarro Han. I like
he's kind of like the right side Han, and Han's like the left side Han. I don't know if that makes sense, but like
that makes sense. It was supposed
Han
to be that
could
way.
have easily become Beckett, I think. He easily could have become like that, and he chose not to.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Beckett is almost like the cautionary tale of what happens to a Han Solo if he doesn't choose to do the right thing, in the critical moment.
It's his foil of sorts, but not quite, because they're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
How did Beckett not die in any of his adventures? He is not a smart man.
No, he's not.
Well, Val was always with him. So.
Yeah.
There we go.
Val.
That's why.
Val.
And nobody shot him first.
At some point he goes, everyone's going to betray you. And then I go, well, that doesn't sound like something someone friendly would say.
Yeah.
When Beckett meets his end at the end, his last words were like, good job, kid. I would have killed you. And you're like, wow, well.
Yeah.
No, I mean, at least he's honest. I wish he got to learn how to play the Val chord.
My favorite part is that, like, they're always
he's
trying to
playing
make
the big
Han Solo
Val chord in the sky.
That's right.
Or in
they're always
hell.
trying to make...
With Kit Fisto.
With Kit Fisto.
Well, Kit Fisto's from...
oh, yeah, they're from Leanne
he's
not
from
Leanne Sound.
Yeah,
I learned that the other day.
Yeah.
But they try to make Han Solo into a good guy a lot, and you're just like, Han Solo's kind of a scummy dude, which is why we like Han Solo.
Yeah, which his arc in A New Hope is supposed to be like his transformation to being like the good dude. So giving him, kind of a conscience this early on is like, all right. But at least he decided, they invite him to the rebellion. He's like, nah, I'm not a rebel. Leave me alone. So at least we had that.
That's kind of why I'm hoping if they do a sequel of sorts, Han will be more scummy before we see him in A New Hope, because that would line up better story-wise, I think.
That's what you want. You want like a scummy Han who's like running around doing like shady things for a space slug, and oh no, his black best friend said something funny. That's what you want.
Yeah, that's why we're here. Come on.
I think
if they actually do. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead if you do. Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I think the core of Han as a character is that he's always gonna do the right thing at the end of the day, and that's who he's always been. And I think that's how the Castons wrote it. So, he's gonna put up this front of being like this jerk, this smart ass, this guy with a lot of gravitas and this cocky guy. But at the end of the day, he can't help but do the right thing. And I think that's the core of the character itself. He's got such a conscience that even if he leaves Luke and his new friends, like, he's going to come back, So I think they were always trying to say, like, he's always been a good guy. He just pretends to be crappy. A big influence, I think, of that character was Humphrey Bogart in, I think, African
Casablanca.
Queen. Casablanca.
Yeah, Casablanca. I mean,
Casablanca.
Rick in that
Maltese
movie is
Falcon.
perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I could definitely see that. And while we're on the topic of Han Solo, can we talk about how Alden Ehrenreich killed it as Han Solo? Because
he nailed it.
He nailed it. Like, absolutely. Like, I'll never stop saying that. It's funny that he's like one of the most underrated parts of Solo, in my opinion, is Solo. Like, he does such a good job with that character.
He had massive shoes to fill, and he impressed me. I went in with like low expectation of him, and he blew me away. He was awesome.
Oh, for sure.
Sir, you went in wearing the Han Solo costume to your first viewing, and you still were blown away. I literally have photo evidence of us walking around Boston afterwards.
The hair was lame, though.
The hair was lame at the time. Yeah.
That's what Terrance and I did too in New York. We were in Brooklyn. We dressed up. We were making his Lando costume like the day of.
Oh damn! I gotta see some
I
pictures of
spent
that.
like hundreds of dollars on mine. I'm just like we're like cutting up a shirt. Like got like 2 hours before we have to be at the place.
That's
But
amazing.
We looked.
I
Good.
love
good.
it. Yeah, that's how we met you guys, was actually through cosplay, and at its core, I'm pretty sure because of solo cosplay, which is absolutely insane. Because you guys are awesome and your cosplays are amazing, and
thanks.
yeah, I'm just like so happy that I like know you guys from this.
What a
Wow,
lovely
that was
sentiment.
really
Thank you.
wholesome.
Yeah, Jesus.
Mushy
Very
moment.
wholesome.
Where'd that come from?
Very, very
Mushy
wholesome.
I'm
moment.
sorry, we were talking about cosplay and it got super mushy, and then I got emotional, and that's all
Well, for
that was.
AJ and I, we both have to wear sunglasses a lot of times in costume.
Yep.
And so like I knew him through like Terrance and stuff, but I remember messaging you. This was like right after Celebration 2 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, you also have the issue of having to wear like sunnies around because you can't wear regular glasses. You look
No,
silly.
it's lame. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like contacts, they bug my eyes. So if I have them in for more than like an hour, they get really puffy. So I'm like, just throw some shades on, then you take them off for a photo, you put them back on.
Yeah. Or just
People
keep them
get-
on.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Han, it's a good character to wear them.
Yeah.
Because like he would.
And it always kind of fits my vibe. Like, I'm a goofy cosplayer. Like, even like my favorite thing to do is Kylo Ren, Ben Solo. But like, I'm goofy about it. It's hard for me to like have an angry face. I'm in any picture at a convention, I'm always smirking or smiling. So I might as well just wear the sunglasses too while we're at it.
I just have coffee with me, so it's fine. I'm like, you got to be cool with me having this coffee in my hand because I'm not dropping it.
Yeah, it adds character to the character.
Yeah, it's exactly
Like a blend of like both of these things right now. Like 90% of my cosplay photos are me just like losing it laughing. I'm pretty sure there's a photo of Terrance as Finn dead on the ground, and I'm standing over him with a lightsaber as Rey, and I'm laughing my ass off. Like this exists.
I remember
that.
Like, I remember that moment. I was there, guys. I could be a part of this too.
The lead up to that was he just appeared out of nowhere and just like collapsed in front of us, and we're like, all right.
Was this in Orlando?
That was in Chicago. That was in Chicago.
Oh, Chicago, okay.
Yeah.
I did it.
You did do it in Orlando too.
Yeah.
Got to do it in Anaheim too. Keep it
Listen,
going.
it's a good photo op.
It's the best photo up. Oh my gosh.
We have all the rays lining up, but then the real focus is just Terrance laying on the ground. That's Finn.
You should have been there. Should have been right next to the line of rays.
I think you were there also. I remember that. So.
Oh,
if there's a line of rays, I'm there.
Yeah. And then no, I'm not going to talk about that other guy.
Anyway.
No. Time for question of the week.
Yes, please. Let's get us off this. Oh boy.
We went too close to the sun there.
Oh boy.
All right, so the question of the week. What one storyline from Solo would you want to continue if you have to pick one? How did you have that ready so fast?
I was gonna just like fly
our audio amigos, as Jamie calls them. You just lifted up the Enfys Nest swoop bike.
Swoop bike. Yeah. So I mean, my answer would be Enfys Nest and the Cloud Riders and the beginning of the rebellion, because we know it kind of starts with her. At least one of the cells does. Everything about that. Plus, Erin Kellyman's on like a hot streak right now because she was in Marvel. She's gonna be in Willow, and she's definitely gonna do future projects with them. She's only 22, so yeah.
It's crazy. What about you, Steve and Terrance?
So for me, I mean, I would want to see Han and Chewie meeting up with that very big gangster in Tatooine.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's Max Rebo of the Max Rebo band.
Yeah.
Of course.
The real mastermind.
Come on.
Hey, Bib Fortuna got very large as well, as we saw. So.
Well, then he kind of exploded.
Yeah.
So.
That's what happens when you eat Krabby Patties.
Yeah. They go right to your thighs.
And then you blow up. Yeah, we almost didn't do it.
Went a week without a SpongeBob reference, and it wasn't us.
At least it wasn't us.
Oh no. It's all good. I love it. I welcome it. It probably would have happened somehow anyway.
Yeah.
For me, I would say it's got to be Lando and what he's doing now that he doesn't have the ship. I think in the books he got a ship called the Lady Luck, but it's also been 15 years. So.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think isn't that after Return of the Jedi? Isn't that like between?
Oh god,
I don't
who
remember
knows anymore.
Hey, just throw it in now.
I know what you're talking about. The Lady
Lando
Luck,
needs
though.
a new ship. He needs money. He needs new capes. He He needs a lot of things that I need to see.
He'll name it the Fleabag.
There you go.
Fleabag. That would be great.
That'd be quite the reference.
It would be.
Damn.
They still could, but who knows? What happened in Last Shot? Matt, you might know offhand because I don't remember.
I didn't read
know that
Last Shot, but I know
half of it's back in the past.
back in the past, yeah.
But
Uncle
it's
Wanwell.
not with L3. Uncle Wanwell.
No.
I don't remember if it's with L3. I haven't read that in a while.
What is it?
Yeah,
so
well.
it's like after Return of the Jedi, and they're trying to discover this chip. Spoiler
Yep, that's
alert.
the current time.
That
of
was
the book.
created to like turn all droids against their masters or whatever.
Yeah.
Sounds
And
familiar.
then I know,
Plot.
but I forget where the flashback goes to. I think it's just, isn't it
I don't
just
remember.
right after? It's like, no, that doesn't make
It's
sense.
pretty far in the past. I mean, not far in the past, but I think before at least all the events in the original trilogy. But I don't know. But it's the
I think
Phalanx
so.
Phalanx
The
Redux
good news.
Yep.
transmitter thing. But whatever. It's
The good news is we are getting a Lando series. So
yes.
out
Yes.
of all these choices, you have the best one because it's actually
Ter-
happening.
It's
Terrance
actually
wins.
happening.
Matt, what about you? What do you got?
Therm Scissor Punch spinoff, please.
God.
I'm
Hey.
glad you mentioned him once
I
again.
mentioned Therm Scissor Punch. I was so surprised when nobody knew my boy, Mr. Scissor Punch. Geez, I was gonna say Han and Chewie meeting up with Jabba as my thing. So I guess I'm gonna go with Kira. I'm gonna go with seeing Kira, what she does next. People have been talking about, how cool it would be if she appeared in the War of the Bounty Hunters series, which I would just lose my mind if she did. I mean, literally, like the entire galaxy gets like a notification that, hey, Han Solo's been captured and Boba Fett's on his way to Jabba to turn him in. Like, if Kira's still around and she gets that notification, that would be like, holy crap, Han Solo, I gotta get him. So I'd love to see her in that. But
That would open up a lot because that
that's
would mean
super
she'd live
wishful
till
thinking.
after Empire.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
I said, that's super wishful thinking, and that also might not be the best idea because it kind of eliminates a lot of tension in stories that would take place probably closer to Solo.
Yeah.
But I just like to see her and Crimson Dawn explored more. I know they made the Dryden Voss model for Clone Wars, and then that's probably going to translate to Bad Batch as well because they don't just make character models for a split-second cameo. We learned that from Depa and Kanan. So, yeah, I think that's probably the one I'm looking most forward to. Oh, and before I forget, Sagwa appeared also in the War of the Bounty Hunters comic,
Sagwa,
which was
yeah.
crazy. What a deep connection that was. More connections with Solo. But one of the Wookiees that Chewie frees on Kessel appears in the comic series between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Is he the one that pats Han on the head?
Yeah.
Jamie's sound is gone.
All right, we'll have to pause for a sec. I can hear
I'll
I can
keep it
hear her
rolling.
moving around.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Oh, you know what? She can't hear us.
Right.
That's what
That's a
that
problem.
means.
Or maybe that's a good thing. It's depending on which way you look at it.
You know what? I was rambling on there for a little while. Can you hear us now? Not if you can hear us.
Yeah, you were better off not hearing Matt there. Anyways, I guess everyone stole mine pretty much, so I'm gonna roll with mine. Was gonna be Crimson Dawn, seeing more of Crimson Dawn and what happens there. There goes my soundproofing that was on the door.
My sound totally cut out.
Yeah, we
Completely.
see. We're just gonna keep rolling.
Okay. Well, I'm out of the conversation. So bye, everybody.
That means I have to do
Never
the closing.
I can come back in.
True, you could. Okay.
Can I chill in here?
Yeah, I guess so. What was I saying? Crimson Dawn? Man, this
Crimson
episode
Dawn?
is something.
This
Or this night is
episode's all
something.
over the place. This is this legendary.
It's the Han
dude.
Solo episode, though, so it makes sense.
It has to be a mess, yeah.
That's
chaotic
true.
and weird,
So-
yeah.
I want to see more Crimson Dawn. I want to see what happens with Maul and Crimson Dawn, and how in Rebels we see him end up on Malachor. Was that it was?
Yeah.
I want to see how he gets there. So I don't really want a Maul show, but I want to see Crimson Dawn, Maul, and Kira, I guess, because we were teased that, and I'd like to see answers with that.
Yeah, I mean, how does Maul go from being the leader of a giant crime syndicate to a weird, creepy old hermit on a Sith planet?
Yeah. Something I meant to mention, kind of off topic, but something I wanted to mention was I love how the Empire is like the backdrop to the movie. They're not the villains. And I want to see more of that in Star Wars. I want to see, because we know the Empire rules for 20 odd years, but I want to see it more in this crime world and whatnot. It's cool to see that in Knights of the Old Republic back in the day in the game, the swoop bike gangs and all that. And I want to see more of that. What we saw in Solo continued. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because there's so much scum and villainy in the galaxy, and I want to see it.
You mentioned the Empire. I just want to quickly mention that I really love the orchestral version of "Glory of the Empire" that they play over the advertisement for Joy. I love that. I love that. That's like now been played with like a full orchestra that I can listen to on occasion because I'm weird like that.
I guess that's it. Jamie, do you want to do the outro? Are we good? Anything else? Anything
before our computers explode or some meteor hits?
And I'm also very hungry.
It's close
before
to
the
us.
Millennium Falcon crashes into my house.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you just want to sit over here? Yeah. In this very uncomfortable seat.
Do the swap out really quick.
Oh man.
I'll be honest, this has been the most unconventional experience in my entire life, probably.
It's been a blast.
So we're gonna wrap up from here. So thank you, Steve and Terrance, for coming on the show today. Where can we find you both on social media?
I keep changing my Instagram URL. I kind of torpedoed it like a couple weeks ago, but right now you can find me at The Thin White Fluke. It's a little David Bowie reference there for you on the Instagram. So,
and I am at Uptown Terrance on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you guys both so much. I want to thank everyone for listening to the HoloNet Marauders podcast. You can find HoloNet Marauders on Instagram at HoloNet Marauders, on Twitter at HoloNet Marauder. Check out our blog, holonetmarauders.com. And I also want to thank everyone so much for donating to our May 4th fundraiser for the Peter Mayhew Foundation. We will make an announcement on our social media, how much we actually donated when we get that final count in. And then, thank you guys so much for listening to the HoloNet Marauders podcast.